Hello, everybody. This is coming in off of Mastercam, and the question is, how can we find a single chain that we could replicate a fillet like this? And there will be a link to the original post in the description by Jay Stell. So it's kind of a fun one because what they're trying to do is these curves all have, or these edges, are all approximately, and you'll see what I mean in a second when I say approximately, because it's certainly not exact, the same radius. And obviously what they're trying to do is machine this with some sort of round over tool. Um, so there's a couple of things that are kind of interesting about what we're trying to do here, because while we machine this with a single round over edge, you'll notice a couple of things. Down here, this looks like almost a proper fillet. Almost. Not quite, but almost. But by the time you get here, even though it's the same radius, you can see, of course, we are lifted way off of the surface. So the tool's center point or contact point would have to be up here, right? All right, enough introduction. Let's talk about how to potentially attack this. Now, standard disclaimers. This is a little ugly of a model, and what we're going to do here is approximate, but that's okay. This is machining, and that's why we have tolerances. So I'm going to start with a new level, and I'm just going to call this one fillet. Let's just call this, fillet contours. All right, good enough. The hardest part of this is naming it. Okay, that might not be true, but all right, we're going to start using the wireframe curve on one edge. Now we're going to come over here, and for some reason in 2026, you'll notice that it is not highlighting on these edges. I don't know why. I'm going to have to send that in because it seems to figure it out afterwards. Now, both of these could probably be done with one curve, but you know, I'm going to do two just to try and keep it as accurate as I can. All right, so there we go. Now we have these curves. I'm going to turn off the main model, and there's a lot of them, right? So what we need to do now is we need to analyze these curves and make sure that they are in fact proper arcs. So I'm going to use F4, or the other thing you could do, this is a new install of 2026 for me, so I haven't really customized it, but if you don't know about this, you can pin commands to the top up here. So you can say right click on analyze entity, analyze distance, dynamics one I use a lot, angle, and they'll be pinned right up here. The other thing you can do if you want is move that below below the tabs. If you come in here under customize quick access toolbar, you can tell it to show those down there. So that'll kind of put those buttons down there if you prefer. Your call. 6 in one, half a dozen another. But what I was trying to get to was analyze entity, and the keyboard shortcut for that is F4. And you'll see that this is in fact a spline. These are not arcs. So this is going to make it a little more approximate just because that's extra fun, right? Now, when I was doing my analysis, I actually discovered something else that was kind of interesting. I'm going to turn this level off for just a moment. Let's turn the main level back on. And I'm just going to make a temporary level here. Level number 3, test, as is appropriate. And I did this where I came over here, wireframe, lines, and I just drew a line from here straight out, and I projected it down. So project that line onto here, and you'll see that that projection does in fact make an arc. Now, the reason that project made an arc and these guys aren't specifically arcs is probably because of the model tolerance. And the other trick is when you project, you do have a tolerance over here. So if I go back to the project command, you'll see this tolerance active. And all that's doing for you is basically allowing it to shift and slide around a little bit. So what that tells me is that I'm within about a thou of being in tolerance, right? So let's go back to this level that we're working on, and I can turn the part back off. And so that's telling me that I could probably get away with using simplify spline over here under the modify group. So I'm going to simplify all of these. And I want to make sure that I'm deleting the old one. And again, this is the same kind of tolerance you're seeing on project. So we're just going to keep a hold of that. All right, so now if I come through and do that same exact thing, I'm going to analyze, and you'll see that these are now all arcs. Hooray. Okay, great. Now for the tedious part. So what we can do is we can make a plane on each one of these arcs. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to make a plane that fits this arc. And so all I did for that, if you've never tried this before, is I grabbed the dynamic gnomon and I just literally dropped it, and then I pressed the C command. So I'm going to do that again just for fun. I'm going to come down here. Now, I personally don't like this little view cube, so I'm just going to right click and get rid of it. But if I come over here and I click, I could drag this dynamic face and hit center. Cool. Mouse over that. You can give it a name if you want. I'm just going to tell it that this is my plane and I want it to be my T-plane and my C-plane. Okay, cool. So that just, all that did for me was create a plane right there. If you hit G view, you see we're aligned to that, right? And if I display that plane, it'll kind of keep it, oops, I don't have display planes turned on. Okay. So now we've got a plane here. Now what we could do is we could create a rectangle. And I'm going to anchor that rectangle to the center, and I want my radius, or my width, to be the diameter of an arc. Happens to be that one. And I can copy that, copy pasta, and I'm just going to lock this number. You'll see why in a second. So now I'm going to again hit my auto cursor C for arc center and snap that there. There we go. So this would be if we came over here and we used close arc. I'm going to close that arc. You'll see that that is a square that perfectly envelops that circle, right? Now, the other thing that you could have done when you were looking at these is when you're analyzing entities, you'll take a look and you're going to see that the radius is within about a tenth or two, pretty darn close, which is why we know this can in fact be made approximately with a round over tool. So now you've probably figured out what we're going to do. We're just going to edit this plane, and I'm going to slide it along to the next one. I'm going to just make sure I'm grabbing the gray plane between Y and X here. And then I'm going to snap it to the center of this. Okay, yes, great. Now we're going to make a new rectangle on the center of that. And we're going to do it again. And like I said, this is a bit of a manual process, right? So I'm going to edit that, grab this one, align to the center of that. Yeesh. Oops, that didn't work at all. Let's try that again. Edit. Center of that one. And you see, oh, it aligned my, oh no, it did. Okay, my Z's backwards. Not that I really care about that. No big deal. Good, rectangle, center, great. Okay, and we can move on and on and on and on. But the trick here, what we're trying to do is figure out where the toolpath is going to follow, right? And what this is going to allow us to do, if we come back here and look at the part, because I know by now you're like, Aaron, what the hell are you doing, right? The idea is going to be that if you program this shape from here, let's go back to my top C-plane, we're going to be able to basically make a spline or an arc that follows wherever we're going. Because even though these ones are all at the same Z, which is a little boring for my example, when we get to this next one, you're going to see that the Z of the box itself is changing. So let's continue on our merry way, right? I'm going to just undo that for a second, edit my plane. And of course, you can create new planes if you want, but, recycling, right? So there, great. Rectangle, center. Oops, that plane was not aligned. Yeah, that is, my X and Y is correct. Oh, because I'm working, because my C-plane was up there. That's why. Just make sure you're using the right C-plane, kids. Rectangle, C. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing here. Keep on going. And so I'm just going to do these ones, and we'll leave it there because you're probably getting the point about now. There we go. All right. So now what we could do, if we look at this thing, we should be able to come in here and draw a spline that fits that shape. And you'll see that it is gaining in altitude as we go around there. Now this one, very clearly, if we look at this from the side, you can see this one should just be a straight line. Bing, bada boom. And I'm just going to pause for a second, and I'm going to continue this all the way around so you see. But, I don't want to waste your time. Back at it here. So I just did the same exact thing. Edit the plane, snap to the center, create the points. So now we've got, or create the square. So now what we have, though, is a series of positions that are exactly where the I guess the outside edge, if you will, a chain that you can directly drive these off of and comp an exact amount and get a toolpath. So let's see what that looks like. Now, as we already talked about over here, anything that's at a flat level, like here or this other end right over here. Actually, no, this is a variable radius all the way to the ragged edge, I think. What I'm going to do is I'm going to color this one and this one. I'm holding down Shift to click on those. I'm just going to make them maybe, yeah, this lighter green here. No, they're okay. They're probably good. Just looking at it from different views, right? Using the Alt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keys. So yeah, those guys are probably all right, close enough to tolerance, right? So actually, no. Looking at that, that is in fact a curve. That's not a straight edge like this one. So let's go and make a spline. Now I'm gonna color my spline. I'm gonna make the line a little bit thicker. We're gonna make it bright red here, just so that way we can see what I'm doing here. So I'm literally now just gonna go from the end to the end to the end, all the way around. Now this one's tricky. I want to make sure I get the right one out here. Boom, boom. There we go. Oh, I think I'm gonna go back up 1 point here. I'm thinking I'm going to be happier without using both of these. I'm going to see what that looks like. And again, this is an approximation because we do not have the original geometry. Snap that right to there. Great. And then I'm just going to be able to create a straight line. Line endpoints. Line endpoint right from here to here. Okay, great. So what this should be doing for me is making a 3D-able toolpath. So now let's come in here. We're going to make a default. We're going to go contour. And my contour, of course, it's a wireframe chain. That starts right there and continues around all the way to there. Great. Now, let's come back here. Oh, my plane's wrong. That's okay. We'll deal with that in a minute. Let's, now we're going to need a roundover tool, right? So I can go over here and I could do analyze dynamic. We could analyze that guy right in here. And I'm just going to take this radius. I'm going to copy that, Control C. So let's go create a roundover tool. And I did that because I knew once I went into here, I wouldn't be able to select all that. All right, I don't care about any of this stuff. What I do care about is my radius on this. Boom. All right, there we go. So this is my radius tool. And, obviously you need to define this as reality, right? Quarter inch cut, overall length, what's your shoulder, what's all these numbers, right? I don't know what tool they're going to be using, so I can't specifically say that, but I do know that this is the radius, 1474. Okay. Now our cut parameters, that's a 3D chain. And here's where I would probably just do this with a manual adjustment. But I'm going to start, we're just going to do 0 everything, right? Compensation direction left. We're doing stock to leave, top of stock. We're going to make everything here incremental and 0 because I want to see what it looks like before I change anything. My planes, top, and let's take a look at that toolpath, right? So what that's going to do is put the center of my, or not, the quadrant, I should say, of that radius there, which is why we're back plotting before we're doing anything else. Now, the cool thing is that we know that that is the correct position for the tool. So what we need to do now is just drop that down by the radius. So you can either do that on your depth, or you can do that on the same thing could happen if you did stock to leave on floors. There we go. So now what we're getting is this pass, which should be pretty close to what we're wanting. Now, we might need to make a little bit of adjustment inside, outside, whatever, based on where it's at, but that should get you right in that neighborhood of following this along. And again, we're going for approximate here, so now you can have a situation like this. Oh, look at that. I chose the wrong edge here. My chain should not have had this point in it. You see that? This is a big radius and that dips in. Shame on me. Let's edit that real quick. I'm going to come back to wireframe. We're going to see if our edit spline tools allow us to delete that point. So I'm just going to, if you missed that there, I went into modify, edit spline. And now down in here, I'm going to drag to this point. And if you read this helpful little hint thing, which I have right click and chose auto hide on, I'm going to hit the delete key. There we go. That looks like it'll match a whole lot better. Green check, regenerate, and still not following exactly. You can see that. So what's obviously happening here is the curve that this was chained across is more than just that, or what is most likely to happen, looking at the way that these are angled like that, is these were originally designed not as a chain to delete, but as an actual arc, which is going to be a whole lot harder for us to reverse engineer. But harder does not mean impossible, right? Because you can take a look at, let's go back to analyze. Hang on a second. I'm going to go back to customize quick access toolbar. I like mine up above. I did that as an example. I'm going to turn it back. Customize quick access toolbar, show it above it. But you can come to each section here and you know what this radius is, right? So if you come over and make an arc section, do an arc endpoints, we can go from this point to this point right here, and we know the radius. So that should be the path that we want to follow. Now, unfortunately, you're going to have to do this for every single section. The joys of reverse engineering a model like this, huh? So let's just get rid of this, and we're going to do the same thing over and over again. Now, this is where having your recent functions, I'm going to grab that and just drag it to the right side of this. I like to keep my recent functions right over here. So again, we're going to do that same thing, right? Now, you can see based on this model that there really is only one of these curves in the middle. So I think the better thing to do here would have been to project a line that lines up with this to get that arc, but we don't have that. So I'm just going to ignore that for a second. We're going to go there to there, and my radius is going to be this radius of an arc. Yep, there we go. Obviously, these straight sections are straight, so we're going to go there to there. We're going to do the radius of an arc again, and that face is not a radial. Interesting. Radius of an arc. Let's just see if it'll give it to me at the edge. It will not. All right, so this one we got to struggle for a little bit, or we can come over here to dynamic, and we could do one of two things. We could assume it's a spline, which it technically is, or we could guess they intended for it to be a radius and kind of average this out, right? So my average radius is about a 0.09, and so I'm going to say radius 0.09, and that's probably correct. Now again, we're going to do that same thing. Keep on keeping on, right? Let's see if this will let me grab this radius. And of course not, because that is a big continuous sweep. So this might be an area where we do want to make it a spline from here to here, just to kind of smooth that out. And of course, we'll need these ones as well, right? So let's do that to that. Radius of an arc, that one. Yep. Okay. Oops. I must have clicked over here incorrectly, so I'm going to recreate this. So an arc, that one. Great. Okay. Obviously, when you're doing this kind of reverse engineering, it's easy to see that. Oh, now that is okay. That's right. Creating an arc from endpoints is going to, am I in 2D mode? No, I'm in 3D mode. Why is that not giving me a 3D arc? Let's see what happens if we do, let's do automatically determine Z depth. Nope. Okay. And then radius of an arc, that radius, that one. Okay, so that is equally as worthless. All right, so you see what's happening there is it's making the arcs on my C-plane, which I guess is fair enough, but not exactly what I intended to do. So what we could do is, let's see if it'll allow us to edit that spline and just drag that end all the way up to that quadrant. It's going to make it into a spline instead of an arc, but that is okay. And just to be extra annoying now, we're going to have to do that for every one of those that we made. Because you see what's happening is it created the correct arc in the plane, but it's, you know, not correct in 3D. So it went to the lower bound and just drew our arc for us. So let's come over here, edit spline. Right, and we're going to do the same thing over here. Oops. Adjusting the Z. Okay, cool. And now I think we're going to need to do that same thing that, I don't know if that's an arc or not, over here. This might be a spline over here. This is obviously an arc, so we're going to do that again. Arc endpoints. And we do not automatically want to determine the Z. That's not an actual fillet either. So again, this is one of those you could probably get away with doing it as a spline. Let's see here how much variance. We got 096 up to 096. Okay, so it varies, but the beginning and the end are the correct radius there. So let's see what happens if we do an 096. All right. That is in fact flat. Okay, so now let's just analyze this. Maybe we can get away with a straight arc instead of a spline. I don't know. Actually, yeah, that is a fixed arc. Great. So arc from endpoints, that one to that one, and a radius of that. Cool. All right, so that's most of the way there. Now we do have a little bit of trimming to do here. Now, again, if the proper thing to do would have been to have that position at the middle, I don't have that, so I'm just going to come over to our splines, do a little bit of a blended spline, a little bit of blended spline action right there. And then I'm also going to just create a straight line section between here. And now I just need to clean up this one with a manual spline. There to about there. Okay, cool. I'm going to hold down Shift when I click on this, and we're going to see that these are not connected, which I'm not really that surprised on. Let's go back to Edit Spline here. Drag that down. Okay, great. And good. So let's zoom out here. I'm going to click Shift and click on that. Oh, okay. So what I should have done was move all of my red onto a different level, because that's what my problem is. But We're going to use our quick mask here. We're going to select all red, Alt E to hide, and I'm going to hold Shift and see that that is a complete contour. Great. Let's move that to a new level, and this one is going to be fillet contour for machining. All right, cool. Now let's come over to our chain. We're going to right click on this one, rechain all. Great, good, regen. And let's compare that. Now I'm going to turn off our fillet contours here. And let's see what that looks like if that follows the shape pretty good. And again, we know that things are a little weird, and like that seems to be leaving a decent bit of material there. I'd have to analyze it to see if it's within bounds, because we might need to tweak or adjust things. But overall, that's probably going to get you in the ballpark pretty darn close. Well, thank you for anyone who's still watching. That ended up taking about twice as long as I expected. So sorry about the 26-minute video instead of the 10-minute, but thanks for watching.